Mirvac is pushing ahead with $22 billion worth of projects. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my stein of coffee. I thought we'd have a look at this interesting article from Domain discussing Mirvac pushing ahead with $22 billion worth of projects, even though the economy is in a, lockdown state. Now we'll just jump over to this screen and have a look at the share price. You can see Mirvac was at $2.06. Back in January, it was over $3.48. So we're back around 2018 levels, 2019 levels, hovering around $2. Look at that plunge. It's taken a big hit. A big hit. And they're a real estate group. Let's just have a look at some of their... Are there any projects on here? Click on this one. Here's 505 George Street. Big, high-end, commercial, residential, some mixed use down the bottom projects, I'd assume, on this one. What is this one? Mixed use, residential-led precinct at 505 George. So, they're a pretty high-end developer. They're not as... people wouldn't be as concerned about a Mirvac development, hopefully, as some of the other ones we've seen. But still, let's have a look. I know they used to have their own architecture division. I had friends who were working with Mirvac. They're a huge machine. Not anymore. It's property developer Mirvac to push ahead with $22 billion of projects as the economy weakens. One of Australia's biggest developers has vowed to press ahead with its $22 billion pipeline of projects around Australia to help try to fend off a collapse in the construction industry and a major dip in the economy. This is good for anyone who's working on their type of projects. But here's the thing, they're going to be, I'd argue, a lot of them will be in the upper end. In the upper end, a luxury type of product. Will there still be demand for it? Maybe this ties into why we're hearing more and more murmurings from Australian politicians to try and increase migration into the nation. So you've got people who can afford these things. Despite the Commonwealth Bank this week releasing dire modelling of house and apartment prices plummeting by as much as 32% over the next 3 years, Mirvac's chief executive, Susan Lloyd-Hurwitz, pledged it would be full steam ahead with the company's building activity. Full steam ahead. Well, they might receive some, sharp pricing and good discounts from their subbies and builders on these projects, particularly if times are tough. And if they're, in it for the long haul, might make sense. Building now when it's a bit cheaper, Let us know in the comments, guys, if you're in the game. Have you noticed a decline in prices, in fees? I was talking to some friends, some tradies, going, work's going okay. Still a few quoting out there, but there's a lot of price cutting. People are getting worried. This is the thing. Are we going to enter a stage where you'll have businesses that are just trying to cash flow in construction, just cash flowing to keep it going, to keep the team together? Maybe they can't get the JobKeeper subsidy because their revenue hasn't crashed enough. It's very important for the economy to keep this construction going, and we're working with state governments to identify projects that can be fast-tracked to be shovel-ready for the future, she said. Well, that's a good point. If your nation stops the construction, if it just grinds to a halt, you drain those skills. You lose them very quick. This is why back in the day when you had different nations building warships, Italy would still be building these big ships just to keep the industry going, because you'll lose that knowledge, you'll lose that capacity. And it comes over to Australians discuss it, saying, let's get our manufacturing industry started again. Well, you're going to have to bring a lot of people over and bring some skills over to help that happen. We've lost a lot of those skills. All credit to the New South Wales and federal government for realising the importance of the construction industry to the economy and for allowing it to keep going during this period of the pandemic. It's vital to keep it going, to keep and provide as many jobs as we can. Well, that's true, but I don't want the New South Wales or the federal government buying up developer projects and our entire civilization, every citizen getting a debt burden forever to buy up some posh apartments that will be turned into public housing or used for government events. Just look at Opal Tower. She was speaking as Mirvac's largest ever single-stage project neared completion, the 460 million 700 apartment and terrace pavilions at Sydney's Olympic Park, marked by the ritual topping out ceremony traditionally where a tree is planted on a building's rooftop, witnessed by everyone who has worked on the buildings. Now, 700 apartments, just think about that. You're going to be competing with so many people if you jump in now. I'm sure there'll be some people that'll jump on board. That'll jump right in. You know, there you go. They planted, oh, wait, I thought they planted it on the rooftop, not on here. Well, anyway, they planted it on the ground. Because of the pandemic restrictions on Friday, the tree was instead planted in the four-block scheme's courtyard in front of a limited number of construction workers spaced out on the balconies of the tallest 35-level tower. The ceremony was held just as new figures were released confirming the official unemployment rate had risen to 6.2%, with 600,000 jobs lost nationally and 200,000 in New South Wales. Well, here's the thing. If they're pushing ahead, but all of a sudden they don't, buyers are dropping off, and we'll look at another article later today or tomorrow where buyers are just abandoning developments. They're abandoning it. Could this be a faulty move on her part? This wouldn't be the first time that a overly confident CEO pushed ahead. And then, well, we'll see the story later. New South Wales Treasurer Dominic Perotti hailed the project as a major milestone for the New South Wales economy, saying it had created as many as 3,000 jobs over its entirety, with 500 people working on the site at any one time. It's just... in some ways, that's really sad. That just a posh apartment buildings is considered a major milestone for the New South Wales economy. And that ties back to a quote from Matt Berry. And this is from his article he wrote for Medium and LinkedIn, just discussing how Australia, we're pretty much built on a house of cards. And I'll bring this up again. In 2016, 67% of Australia's GDP growth came from the cities of Sydney and Melbourne, with both state and federal governments having done everything they can to fuel a runaway housing market. It's because they're addicted to stamp duty. The small area, and this is the portion of this quote which has stuck with me and really got me worried. The small area from Sydney's CBD to Macquarie Park is in the middle of an apartment building frenzy, alone contributing 24% of the country's entire GDP growth for 2016, according to SGS Economics and Planning. Now, this is from 2017, but it's still very relevant. So nearly a quarter of all the GDP growth in that year came from that little area. Now, what we'll do is we'll bring up the Foreign Investment Review Board. He's talking about 2016-17. Look what's happening here. All these approvals, all driven by foreign investment. This is why you're going to see more and more of our politicians, of Mirvac, of people arguing for more migration and more foreign investment, because it helps the housing bubble. It puts a strain on a lot of our other resources and the machinations of our civilization that needs to be addressed. And it can be with projects. So it could work hand in hand with desires to try and, get the economic activity of the nation going. What would you rather incur debt for as a citizen of your civilization? We're going to one way or another. Would you incur it for, government buying up apartments? Or maybe government investing in some new infrastructure? Would you want your water to go in would you want your super to go into invested in a nuclear power plant for Australia for cheap power? Or in dams and infrastructure for Australia? Let me know in the comments. But here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. If they're pinning their hopes on people flooding Australia post-pandemic with a 97% crash in international and domestic travel, do you think that'll happen? Does it sound like they've got a plan? Back to the article. The importance of the construction industry to jobs and the economy can't be overstated, he said. It's construction and the investment in infrastructure that helped us when we went into the pandemic, and it's construction and infrastructure that will help us to get back. Construction developments like this are of huge benefit to the New South Wales economy, and they've never been as important as they are now in keeping New South Wales moving. Every generation throughout history has had its challenges, and this is ours. but we will come out stronger. I mean, you've got to say that. You've got to argue for it. Building construction contributes around $29 billion to the New South Wales economy every year, around $15 billion of which is in the residential sector. Nationally, construction provides over 1.1 million jobs, accounting for around 9% of the workforce. Mirvac has contracted $22.4 billion worth of future construction development across residential, office, and industrial sectors. I mean, this is fine if they're going to build it, but will there be a demand for it? Will there be a demand for it, particularly if we're going into a prolonged recession? Ms. Lloyd Hurwitz said government support for keeping sites open would play a critical role in Australia's economic recovery, alongside its investment in infrastructure such as the Metro West, connecting Parramatta to Sydney in just 20 minutes, with a station to be located at Sydney Olympic Park. This is the thing with some of these government spending on infrastructure. Some of it will never pay itself off in its lifetime or in living memory, and it's all going to change as well. It's just so much of it will, hang on, I will bring up here, is in roads and infrastructure stuff. This is the Australian infrastructure. We can just see, some of the projects. We'll have a look here. Let's go to Victoria. We haven't been to Victoria for a while. Melbourne Geelong Rail Gateway Initiative, rail upgrade, ring road upgrade, a project that's actually happening. So they've got initiatives and they've got projects. Northeast Link project. So many of these are just focused on transportation and moving people and things around and infrastructure around. Are we going to need that? Is that going to... Sure, it's going to make an impact on people coming to the country. What about our potable water supply that hasn't kept up with population growth? What about the fact that we've got some of the most expensive power on the planet? Because all the hippies are putting all their dreams into, renewables. We'll have a look here. This is the Australian energy market. This is live data. See all these things that are white? They're producing no power. See all the things that are green? Down in Victoria. I love showing off Victoria because they're the wind farm state. Look at that. 9%. 10%. See these guys here? Running hot? It's cool. Keeping the state going. And let's bring up the wind chart right now and have a look at how wind's going down in Victoria. Oh, look at that. All at zero, very slow. This is why, one of the reasons why, and the whole industry is a overly convoluted mess when you look into it, into the way government pays and all these things. But fundamentally, our power is expensive. Very expensive. That's going to hit business. That's going to hit innovation. That's going to hit any hope of manufacturing coming to Australia. A real interesting example of one of the advantages we have is Cadbury. When they started up their factory in Launceston, they looked all around the world. And the advantage of Lonnie was because of the cold climate, so they didn't need to worry about the milk, cheap power. That's why. So anyway, back to this. The Pavilion's development comprises 4 towers, with 2 of the blocks Sydney's first to build rent apartments. 75% of the apartments for sale have already sold, with no buyers as yet trying to rescind their contracts because of financial hardship from having lost their jobs or businesses. Well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Ms. Lloyd Hurwitz said despite the difficult economic and challenges, she didn't believe that prices for the remaining apartments would slide. In this environment, quality projects integrated with the outside space do outshine. And in Sydney Olympic Park, of our existing investment properties, we've managed to have a 0 vacancy rate. I'm just concerned with all the issues in Sydney, with the construction, with the ground. Will we have another Opal Tower? It was years after it was built. But it's impossible to predict the unpredictable. And while it's a difficult environment with enormous challenges, and many, many people are suffering, we're determined to do our part to keep the economy moving. I feel doggedly confident. So there you have it, guys. Mirvac are pulling out all stops, and they're keeping their projects going. This may be a lifeline for a lot of workers that need it. We had one viewer comment that he's just gotten on a big job, which has got a few years' worth of towers going up. That's the thing. That's the advantage of working for one of these big projects. You've got a security work for a while. It's a tough thing in this game, guys. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Have you been affected by this? Are you working for Mirvac on these projects? What are they like as a as a developer? Do they pay on time? Or are they like other builders? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can do it via joining the channel here on YouTube or on Patreon. You can support us via our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. You can buy a merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Path from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.